our own experience, our own stories. And so a dimension of this goal is that what biblical stories do is to generate more stories. It has been the most generative storytelling tradition in the history of human civilization. It has generated just tons of other stuff. That process of creativity, of new stories, is at the heart of the creativity of God and of the potential for the redemption, the salvation of human civilization, I believe. I think it's the most important thing that is happening in the world and is a primary resource for example, peace rather than war as a solution to the problem of systemic evil in the world. We don't believe that yet, but there are a lot of things going on that are potential connections with that. So I'm steadily thinking about the connections of these stories with the storytellers of Islam. How do we make those connections? That's a far better connection for the world than the connections we're presently making with weapon systems and military forces. That's the only way we know how to deal with it. Well, I think storytelling is a much better way. It's better for people. So we want to connect with that. And we'll just take some small steps in regard to that. But I want to think about that. And then a fourth goal will be to explore ways to pray with this story. We're not going to do a lot about that, but what I mean in relation to that goal is that these stories, when they get inside, then there's the possibility for them to grow in your spirit, of being a resource for your spiritual life, for your relationship with God and other people. So praying with the story is a way of being with the story, of remembering the story in God's presence in the intimacy of your own spirit. And then finally, to explore how this story can be told. What are the contexts in which you can tell this story? And for us to think about that together. This is going to be then, quick and dirty. We're going to try to touch all these bases. So we'll have to not stay on any one of those for too long. Questions or comments about these goals? Is this what you thought this workshop was going to be? Are there any other things that you would like to do that are not in this list? What do you think?
This is a template, isn't it, for learning all about this process?
It is. Yes. These are dimensions of learning biblical stories. Yes.
I love the list.
Great.
There's more there than I expected.
Okay.
Is this number 7?
No, this is 9.
Where's number 7?
2 doors down that way.
Thank you. Oh dear.
But it's no problem. If you want to stay here, it's okay. Or if you want to come back, if you can't find it. So don't waste any time on it. Yes, Amelia's upstairs. Is that, are you in that? Are you signed up for that one?
That's in the Chattahoochee room.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well, she's terrific. So, all right. Any other comments, questions about the goals? Any, ambiguities, questions that you want to ask about this? Okay. Then let's go. We're going to begin with a lion hunt, And the rule of a lion hunt is that you will say and do everything that I do except sit on the back of the chair. So you don't have to do that. But you'll want to put all of your implements of literate culture down as a symbolic act of entering into the world of story. So when everyone has their implements down, we'll begin. No. No. Yeah, no. There are more or less comfortable spots, and so there is a certain wiggle involved to find. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Nice day.
Nice day.
Good idea. You want to go on a lion hunt? Sure. Let's go. Open the door. Shut the door. Open the gate. Shut the gate. Oh, I forgot. Typical. I forgot my gun. This will be a politically incorrect workshop or a lion hunt.
This will be a politically incorrect line.
All right. Let's go back. Open the gate. Shut the gate. Open the door. Shut the door. Pick up the gun. Kiss my spouse. Mwah. All right. Here we go. Open the door. Shut the door. Open the gate. Shut the gate. Oh, this is nice. Let's climb a tree. Might see a lion. Look to the left. Look to the right. No lion. We're getting into some grass. Low grass. Medium grass. Tall grass. No grass. Alrighty. Coming to a river. It's a really big river. Anybody see a bridge? Look to the left. Look to the right. No bridge. We're going to have to swim. We better get a big run. On your marks. Get set. Go! Oops! It's a really big river. There's crocodiles in there. We better get a really big run. On your marks. Get set. Go! Into the river. Swim. Beat off the crocodiles. Right. Beat them off. All right. We made it. Way to go. Did everybody make it? Yes. All right. Let's climb another tree. Might see a lion. Look to the left. Look to the right. No lions. But I do see a cave over there. There might be a lion in there. Let's go look. Little lunch. Okay. Here we are. At the cave. It's a really big sucker. dark in there. There might be a lion in there.
There might be a lion in there.
Hey, there's lion tracks
Hey, there's lion tracks.
going in. And there's lion tracks coming out.
There's lion tracks coming out.
And there's human tracks going in.
There's human tracks going in.
There ain't no human tracks coming out.
Ain't no human tracks coming out.
You go first. No, you go. You go first.
You go first.
Well, all right. We'll go together.
We'll go together.
All right.
All right.
Get your gun.
Get your gun.
Push up your glasses.
Push up.
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Here we go.
Here we go.
It's really dark in here. Does anybody see a lion? No. I think I feel something. Fuzzy. I see one big yellow eye. I see two big yellow eyes. It's a lion! Run! Up the tree! Down the tree! Through the river! Swim! Through the grass! Tall grass! Medium grass! Low grass! Up the tree! Down the tree! Open the gate! Shut the gate! Open the door! Shut the door! Wait a minute! Wrong gesture! Oh well. We made it. Way to go. Well, the disciples all came back. And they told Jesus all the things they had done.
And they told Jesus all the things they'd done.
He said to them, let's go off to a deserted place
He said to them, let's go off to a deserted place.
where we can talk for a while. 'Cause many were coming and going. And they had no leisure even to eat. So they got in the boat, started off to the other side. But many saw them going. And they recognized him. And they all ran around the whole sea and were waiting for Jesus on the shore. When Jesus came on the shore, he saw this huge crowd. And he had compassion on them. Because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he taught them many things. Now, when it was evening, his disciples came to him and they said, Teacher, these people have been here all day. It's getting late. Send them away into the towns and the villages. To buy themselves something to eat. Jesus said to them, you give them something to eat. No, you give them something. And they said, what? Do you want us to go and buy 200 denarii of bread and feed it to all these people? He said, how many loaves do you have? came back and they said, 5. And 2 fish. Jesus ordered them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. And they sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s. Jesus took the loaves and he blessed them and he broke them and he gave them to the disciples. To distribute to all the people, and so also the fish. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they collected 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. Those who ate were 5,000 men. All right. Now, this story is a long story for an introductory first-time workshop. So you got to get the structure of the story. There's first of all the setting of the scene. It's a long setting of the scene, right? So you don't have to write any of this down. Don't write any of this down. You're going to see this in your mind's eye. This is not a literary thing. This is, you're going to see it. So the first is Jesus and the disciples, they came back, they were talking, and he said, let's go off for a retreat. And because they were being, there were people all around them, they didn't have any leisure even to eat. And so they got in a boat and started off across the sea. But the crowd saw them going, they recognized them, and they ran through all the villages, collected all the people on the way, and they got there before Jesus arrived. So when he came on shore, that's all part of the preparations, right? We're setting the scene. So he came on, he had compassion on them. Oh no. You know how it is with people. And so he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he taught them all day. So that's the setting of the scene. First part. Then, so there are 2 parts to that. One is they're talking, right? Getting their plan for the retreat. Second is they're the people following them, getting there, and then he gets there and there's this huge crowd. Okay? That's first 2 episodes. Then is the disciples and their dilemma. Being wise as they were and knowing more than the teacher, as all students are prone to do. So they came, teacher, it's getting late. I know you've been teaching all day and you still have more to teach, but send these people away. And so Jesus, being an ancient teacher, responds, you give them something. Problem. Okay, that's the way to think about that. This is the problem. So they, being all wise, what? Jewish students, right? What? You want us to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and feed it to all these people? And Jesus said, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. They came back, 5 and 2 fish. Okay, that's then the discussion about the resources for responding. So you got the problem, then you got the resources. End up with 5 loaves, 2 fish. Next, the organization. This is the sorting of the army. He had them sit down in groups on the grass. It's very well organized. Groups of 50s and 100s. Think the Roman legion. Boom, boom, boom. He's organizing the companies. Hundreds and 50s. So see that, right? That's what you're telling about. Hundreds and 50s. Then the feeding. Took the 5 loaves, blessed them, broke them, gave them to the disciples to distribute among the people. So also the fish. And they all ate and were satisfied. Supper. Now is cleanup, right? They collected 12 baskets. Big baskets, Jewish baskets, full of the broken pieces and of the fish. And those weight were 5,000. So that's the order of the story. Now what you do in relation to remembering this story is to see it and to feel it. It's like the dynamics of the lion hunt. You can remember it because of the experience of it. You can feel it. So that's what you want to pay attention to. Pay attention to the structure of the story. They want to get away. They don't do it because of the crowd. They're trying to figure out how to feed them. They identify the resources, organize the supper, pass it out, collect what's left over. That's the structure of the story. That's all you have to remember. You focus on that, and then you hang the words on that structure. But if you remember that structure, and you remember how that goes, you can tell the story. Okay? All right, let's go over it again. And this time, think the structure. Okay? Think the shape of the experience and what it is that you want to convey about that experience. Okay? All right, here we go. The disciples returned and told Jesus all the things that they had done.
The disciples returned and told Jesus all the things that they had done.
And Jesus said to them, let's go away by ourselves for a little while so that we can talk.
Jesus said to them, let's go away for a little while to a quiet place so that we can talk.
So they got into the boat and they started off across the sea.
So they got in the boat and they started off across the sea.
But many saw them going and they recognized them.
But many saw them going and they recognized them.
And they ran on ahead of him and were waiting for him on the shore.
And they ran on ahead of him and were waiting for him on the shore.
So when Jesus came on shore, he saw this huge crowd.
So when Jesus came on shore, he saw this huge crowd.
And he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he taught them many things. Now, when it grew late, the disciples came to him and they said, Teacher, the hour is now late, and these people have had nothing to eat. Send them away into the towns and the villages so they can get themselves something to eat. Now remember the dumb teacher feeling, right? That's your hook for this, right? You know the dumb teacher syndrome. You've all had that feeling. Just remember that. Okay? Now, then Jesus said to them, you give them something to eat.
Jesus said to them, you give them something to eat.
And they said, What? You want us to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to all these people? He said, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. They came back and they said, 5 and 2 fish. Jesus ordered them to have all the people sit down in companies on the green grass. And they sat down in groups of 50s and hundreds. I got that wrong. It's hundreds and 50s. Right. So you got the centurion first, and then you got the divisions of the centurion's units. Jesus took the bread, he blessed it, and he broke it, and he gave it to the disciples to distribute to the people, and so also the fish.
Jesus took the bread, he blessed it, and broke it, and he gave it to the disciples to distribute to the people, and also the fish.
They all ate and were satisfied.
They all ate and were satisfied.
They collected 12 baskets full of the broken pieces and of the fish.
They collected 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of fish.
And those who ate were 5,000 people.
And those who ate were 5,000 people.
Men, that's right, you're right. That's right, it's men, it's men, it's men. I was wrong. No. It is really men. The word for that's generic is not used. So Mark clearly means men. I think. Well, that may be. But, well, we won't, we don't know about what he says is, right. And I think one of the reasons for that may be that he is talking about the feeding of the army. And so it may be that that's part of what's going on. I don't know. Now, everybody can take one of these, but I want you to, everybody get one, and you can pass them back. Now I want to do a little meditation on this. So you can hold, I want you to contemplate this that I have given you. Does everybody have one? This stuff is, in our context, the primary enemy of the storytelling tradition. We have thought in the modern world that if we just have it on the paper, on this stuff, if we have it here, if we've got the ink on the page, that we know it, that we've got it. So I want you to look at this. These are marks on, these are ink marks on paper. These are processed trees with black stuff on. Now I want you to put this up to your ear. Do you hear anything? Crinkly stuff. But do you hear any words? Do you hear a story? Is this inside your heart? Notice also how you perceive this, and pay attention to what organs in your head and in your hands are perceiving this object. What is it? Your eyes. Now, your eyes activate the stuff that, the sense data that comes from your eyes activate particular centers in your brain. This is theoretically a story. But stories are sounds. Nothing's happening here with your ears. I'm talking to you. That's activating centers in your brain. There's a little tactile stuff going on because you're holding on to it, but that prevents you from doing anything that is more experiential or expressive with your hands. Furthermore, I'm going to ask you now, soon, having interrupted your short-term memory of the story like this, but I want you to keep it in your mind as much as you can, that this stuff is also a primary weapon to use against storytellers. I'll tell you how you do it. Against storytellers. You do it like this. That'll kill the storyteller. And you can, well, that's that too, but that's not as immediately murderous to storytelling as the assumption that this is really the story and that I'm looking at it and I've got it, but what you're doing isn't. Right? Now, what we're talking about here is a clash of cultural worlds. That's what this symbolizes. This is a connection with, this is an artifact of an entire culture that has significantly and has always seen storytellers as idiots, as pre-literate, unlearned idiots who have no place in literate culture. Now, what I want you to do is to reform and reappropriate the way that you use this stuff. I'm going to ask you to tell the story to a partner. Now, when you are telling the story, don't even have this anywhere near the vicinity. It has no place in what you're going to try to do because you have to draw on what's in here, what's in your head, in your heart, in your gut, whatever. Whatever in your hands, whatever sources of recall that you have to be able to tell the story to your partner. Your partner is going to help you. Now, the way to help is not to look at the story. So, partner, don't look at it. You put it down at the side, and you remember with your partner. Use your hands. Use your memory. And especially if they're going good, yeah, all right, amen, whatever. But something, feedback, positive feedback. There's energy in that. So don't cut it off. Don't put this up in front of it to cut off that energy. Let that energy flow. And if your partner gets lost and can't remember what the next part of the story is, you remember. First of all, with a gesture, if possible. But if not, then a word to reactivate, get the story back on track. And sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes, just some little suggestion. But you may forget. So if you forget, and neither one of you can remember what comes next, then you partner look, say, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. Right? Or whatever. Okay? Then after your partner's finished, you can check it and see and say, oh, we missed this, 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 and so on. Okay? And then you reverse. Now, I'm very serious about following that process and paying attention to how you use this. Because it's the misunderstanding of the role of this. It's misappropriation of texts that have killed the biblical storytelling tradition in our culture over the last 200 years.
It's not memorization at all, is it?
No, not that's a dimension of it, but that isn't the best way to talk about it, because memorization has come to mean in our culture the reduplication of text in the brain and in then a story. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're appropriating an experience and exploring the ways that you can recreate that experience for others. So remembering is a part of that, but it isn't memorizing so much as it is giving it a body. That's what remembering means. It's giving it members again. It's giving it a body. So embodiment or interiorization, internalization, appropriation, those are all more appropriate words to describe what we're talking about. So memorization is a literate culture word for what I would say is an oral digital culture experience that is of a very different character. So it's breaking it out of that. Now, the reason why it's important then is that this is an occasion to practice that. And so what we're talking about is different practices with the Word of God. Okay? All right. Any questions about all that? Is that? Now, one other request. I'd give you an order if I could, but it wouldn't work. So it's a request. I would request that I'm going to give you, probably 10 minutes, 6 or 7. I'll see how you're doing. Let me know when you've both made it through the story. But only tell the story. Don't talk about it. We spent centuries talking about these stories. Let's try just for this time that we only tell the story. So when you've finished and you've gone over it again, then go back and do it again. And help each other. Get as far along in this process as you can in terms of the interiorization and the re-embodiment of this story for each other. And, okay? All right, we're going to go over it once more, and then we'll divide up, and you can find a partner. You can go any place in the room. You can go out. Well, let's stay in here. I think this is a dead enough room that I think we can get by. If the secret to telling stories when you've got a lot of people, it's like a yeshiva. You just tell it loud enough that you're not distracted by everybody else. Okay, so it's just kind of organized, chaos. Well, it's a marvelous sound. It's the sound of Pentecost. So along the way, just pay attention to the sound. It's wonderful sound. Wonderful sound. Are you ready? Okay. All right. Here we go. We'll go over it once more, and then you tell it. The disciples came back to Jesus, and they told them all the wonderful things that they had done.
The disciples came back to Jesus and told him all the wonderful things they had done.
And Jesus said, "Let's come away by ourselves."
And Jesus said, let's come away by ourselves.
Go away by ourselves to a deserted place. So they got in the boat and they started off to the other side. But many saw them going, and they ran on ahead of them to the place where they were going.
But many saw them go and ran on ahead of them to the place where they were going.
So when Jesus came on shore, he saw this huge crowd. And he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he taught them many things. Now, I'm noticing something. The story, the primary source of memory for a storyteller is your hands. So use your hands. Because your hands, you tie the hands of a storyteller, they can't remember the story. Because your hands, the memory is in your body. It's not up here. So use your hands as a way of connecting with the story. So don't go here. Keep your hands active, okay?
Well,
All right.
are you purporting to tell us according to NRSV? Or are you telling us a story?
This is the NRSV. This is.
Well, you left out an entire line last time.
Oh, I forgot. That's right. I did. Same line that Amelia left out. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So,
It was distracting.
yes. Well, that's
Yeah,
that.
there
Thank
was.
you. All right. So you're.
So I don't know whether I should be paying, I should put this down. Right.
Right. You should put it down. Yeah. But you're reminding me of that is fully appropriate, and thank you. Yeah. Because I do want to, So that was that. That is. I'm forgetting that. That narrative explanation of why he said, let's go off to a lonely place. Okay. So the disciples came, when it grew late, when the disciples came and they said, Teacher, the hour is growing late.
The disciples came.
And these people have had nothing to eat. Send them away into the towns and the villages to get themselves something to eat.
Send them away to the towns and villages so people can find themselves something to eat.
Jesus said to them, you give them something to eat.
Jesus said, you give them something to eat.
They said, what? You want us to go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to all these people? Jesus said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go, see. They came back and they said, 5 loaves, 2 fish.
They came back and said, 5 loaves and 2 fish.
Jesus ordered them to have all the people sit down in companies on the green grass.
Jesus ordered them to have all the people sit down in companies on the green grass.
And they sat down in groups, hundreds, 50s.
And they sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s.
Jesus took the loaves and he blessed them and he broke them and he gave them to the disciples.
Jesus took the loaves and he blessed them and he broke them and he gave them to the disciples.
To sit before the people and also the fish.
To set before the people and also the fish.
And they all ate and they were satisfied.
And they all ate and they were satisfied.
And they collected 12 baskets full of the broken pieces and of the fish.
And they collected 12 baskets of the broken pieces and also the fish.
And those who ate were 5,000 men.
And those who ate were 5,000 men.
Okay, tell the story to each other. Yeah? Everybody make it through? Good. Well, way to go. Way to go. That's a big deal. Now, I would have you notice something. If I had said, an hour ago, you're going to learn this story 15 minutes or so, and you'll be able to tell it. If you thought about, now I want to tell this story on Sunday in the liturgy at church. I don't have enough time. It's going to take me how long to learn it?
4 weeks.
Yeah,
4 weeks.
whatever, right? Just notice that. You learned it in, what, 20 minutes? Yeah, well, yeah, quite a bit less, because most of the time I was talking. Now, pay attention. Notice what we did, because that process was designed to maximize the abilities that are all there in you to internalize that story quickly. So it's highly interactive. You were doing it, involved your body, hearing it, telling it back and forth. So those processes work. The normal way that we learn stories take a lot more time. So, just notice that and pay attention to that in terms of how you can learn the stories more quickly. So it may be that you get somebody to work with. It may be that you develop more interactive processes, whatever. But just notice that, because those capabilities are all there. The problem is that we have learned ways of doing that, of getting the texts off of the page into our heads in very, very different ways that are not as quick and natural and that do not connect with the learning mechanisms that are in our brains and our bodies as well. Okay. So, it may not appear that way, but the way I would describe this is a highly sophisticated learning process that you can learn from. Okay? So,
Do you ever use that as a device to work your way back to the verbatim story
Sure.
that's contained?
sure.
Like start from the storyteller version and work your way back to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
original.
And the way to do that is now, if you wanted to get this absolutely word for word, it would be relatively easy. Right. And you just do the same thing, you just do it with a higher degree of attention to detail. So I'm a pianist, right? So I learn Mozart and Bach and Brahms and so on. I learn it. I learn all the notes. And if I make any changes, I pay attention to them. And, and I try to, it's just extending the same process, but just with more attention to detail. That's all.
Do you do something akin to this by yourself? Because obviously we don't have 20 people chanting
Yeah.
along with us at home.
I do, and I don't do it as well. I don't, in my own practice, I don't do this as well as I teach. And so, but I get other people. I tell it right away. The way it works for me is I know I've got somebody that I have to tell it to, and then I imagine them, and I try to find somebody else who will work with me on it. That's always more effective. So to get a group so that then you could have times when you get together and you learn it together, I'd recommend that. So doing it orally, getting up, don't just sit, use your body, get engaged, move around, hear it, maybe make a recording of it and play it for yourself. So there are, but especially if you can get somebody else. It's the interactive that is most generative in terms of activating stuff in your brain and maximal memory connections and all that stuff.
I took a course from Tracy this summer, and it was 5 days, and at the end of the 5th day, we had to present a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that the point where I learned the story was on the 3rd day, it was on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
When I got up and I walked it
Right.
around the room.
Right.
That's when I learned
Right.
it.
Right.
It's when I walked it around.
Right. Right. So think of the memory being in your feet instead of in your head. Think of the memory sources being in your hands, in your legs, in your guts. So and in fact that is the case. There are memory connections in all of your body, and so and that get activated, And so the more of those you're doing, the more sight, the more sound, and the more motor action there are, that activates more centers in the brain. Therefore, there are more synapses going in different parts of the brain, therefore more memory connections, therefore quicker and more accurate. So it fits with physiology.
Tom,
Yes?
I noticed that this story has a certain flow to it. The chronology of it is pretty good to follow in your heart and your head. Not that it's rather simplistic.
Yeah, yeah,
And
right.
how do you apply this approach to, say, remembering
Galatians.
the Sermon on the Mount,
Yeah.
the Beatitudes, the Ten Commandments? How do you do that?
Well, these stories are easier. They're more visual. There's more stuff that you can see and imagine in terms of the sequence of the events themselves. You know, there are two ways that things. If I had more time, I'd give you an outline of human memory. But there are two ways that things are stored in the brain in long-term memory. One way is episodic, and the other way is conceptual. So you can store things according to the events of your life, childhood, high school, college, You can do it that way. Or you can do it in relation to themes or topics. Learning, sunshine. And you can go through your memory and organize things. Either way, they're stored both ways, and you can access them both ways. But the easiest way is episodic. That's why the children's sermon is generally more memorable than the adult sermon, because the children's sermon is organized in relation to episodic memory, if it's done well, rather than as a little moral, and the adult sermon is organized conceptually. So that's just the way that long-term memory functions. If you're in these other things, you have to store it in relation to concepts, because that's what they are. They're conceptually organized. So you can sometimes associate the concepts in, say, like the Sermon on the Mount, with episodes of experience, but it's more difficult. Just like you can do this with concepts, but it's not organized that way. So but it is fully possible. It's just a matter of training and experience with doing that, and it gets easier the more you do it. Now, a second stage in working with a biblical story is to listen to the story in its original context. One of the primary sources of the misinterpretation of these stories is that they have not been listened to in their original context. Just to up the ante a little bit, these stories have done more damage than any stories in human history by their misinterpretation. The deaths of millions of people can be laid directly at the door of the misinterpretation of biblical stories. And so it matters that you sort out what the original story meant, what the experience was, and what it was about. So to listen to it and to pay attention to that is a very healthy thing to do for the human race. Okay? It prevents a whole lot of damage if we do that. So, I'll just, for reasons of time, I will identify these elements of the dynamics of this story quickly. Audience memories and connections that are drawn on in this story. The people of Israel in the wilderness, manna in the wilderness, Moses praying for and receiving the bread from the heavens that God sent. the immediate background in terms of the memory of the audience is the execution of John the Baptist. It's the story that precedes this. And the story that precedes that is that Jesus sent the 12 out on a mission and told them to go and heal the sick and preach the word. And so they came back. What were they talking about? Well, they were talking about their mission and all the things they had done. They healed many people. They cast out demons, so on. They were excited. Wahoo! Look what we did. It was incredible. And Jesus is, in the context, why go on a retreat? Because he was depressed. He was sad about the execution of John the Baptist. That's the context. Now, it doesn't say that in the story. And in fact, the story about John the Baptist had happened a long time, even in Mark. But nevertheless, it has that association. So there's a sense of, let's go back and think about this. This is serious business that we're involved in. The disciples. The disciples are the most sympathetic characters in the story. We can identify with the disciples. We don't understand Jesus either, and he is really weird a lot of the time. He says things that are just incredible. He does things that are incredible. So it's not inappropriate. On the other hand, you have to maintain your integrity. And so, as a student, you know about as much as the teacher does. And so there are those student-teacher dynamics. Those are all present in this. It's Moses and the people in the wilderness is in the background of this. You remember the dynamics of those stories. Why did you bring us out here to kill us? You stupid leader. You bring us out here into the wilderness, and you have this great idea that you're going to lead us out of the... Let's go back. At least we had onions in Egypt. That's in the background, is the people of Israel and Moses. That's resonating around here because they've heard all those stories. So the people who are listening have all those stories in their memories. So there are a lot of allusions to those. And the disciples are asking legitimate questions. How are we going to feed all these people? Do something about it. It's late. We're out here in the wilderness. You've got all these people. How many people? We don't even know yet how many. 5,000 people they've got. How many camps have you had recently with 5,000 people? It's a big project. So they were right about that. So they are, but it's also funny. There is a way in which, the repartee between Jesus and the disciples is funny. It isn't just deadly serious. It is, oh God, they had the wrong theology. That isn't what's going on here. If you listen to it, that's not what's going on in the story. The story is about relationships between students and teacher. And it has a history. The mystery of the loaves. What did the loaves mean? Do you know what the loaves mean? What does it mean that Jesus took these 5 loaves and fed 5,000 people? How did he do that? There are no answers in this story about that. It remains a mystery. So at the end of the story, that mystery is the hook to the audience to stick around to hear the next story. And the rest of the story. We're talking a 3.5 hour story here. One of the goals of the storyteller is to keep the audience around to hear the rest of the story. One of the major strategies for storytellers is to create mysteries that audiences will either hang around to find out about or will read on until that is resolved. So Agatha Christie figured that out. So did Mark. So it doesn't all have to be in relation to what's going on. If you listen to the story in this story, in the context of the whole story, it isn't all resolved. You don't want to resolve it all now. So what happens in the next story is Jesus told the disciples, get in the boat, go across to the other side. So they were out in the boat, and Jesus was on the shore. And they were having trouble rowing because the wind was against them. At the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. And when they saw him, they were terrified because it looked like a ghost. And Jesus said to them, take heart, I am, don't be afraid. And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased. And they were all astonished because they didn't understand about the loaves, because their hearts were hardened. Now, what about your heart? Why don't you understand about the loaves? Is your heart hardened? Who hardened his heart? Pharaoh hardened his heart. The enemies of God harden their hearts. Examine your heart. How are you hearing this story? I'm describing some of the dynamics of the story as Mark then builds on it in terms of what has happened in this story. Now, the baskets. In the stories of the manna, they were forbidden to collect the manna. Right? If you collected it, it went rotten. You only had enough for one day. Right? Give us this day our daily bread. But in this story, they collect. I don't know what the significance of that is. But it is a difference. So you think. The loaves in Mark. What happens with the loaves? This is part of a series of loaves stories. The last, and this formula. A reason to do the formula. You may have noticed when I told the story, I invited you, and this is listening to the story, what Mark did when he told the story was that there's this big disagreement. They go, they finally come back, they say he has them sit on the green grass. Then there's this pause. Jesus, and this is a sacramental moment in the story. Jesus took the loaves. He blessed them. He broke them. He gave them to the disciples to set before the people. It's slow. It's quiet. It's a sacrament. It's a sacramental moment. It happens again in the story. And the last time that it happens is at the Last Supper. Jesus took the loaves and he said to them, "This is my body." Well, that's a significant resolution to the mystery of the loaves. But it doesn't come until the Last Supper. That's an hour and a half later in this story. Okay? So that's part of what's going on in the story. Another part of what's going on is that the audience clearly, I think, then was hoping for a Messiah, for someone who would lead the people into a new land, a new place, who would save them from the domination under the powers of evil that they were experiencing. This story fulfills some of those hopes. It raises Jesus' credibility as a potential leader. And the military dimensions of this story had them sit down. He ordered them to sit down, to have the people sit down in companies. what's this about? What kind of, he's not doing what a Messiah normally does, which was to organize an army. Here he organizes people who are going to be fed in companies of hundreds and fifties. Romans organized their army that way. And those allusions are in the background. Do you remember the story of the Gerasene demoniac? Jesus said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name is Legion." And so, is this coincidence that Mark uses the name of the primary unit of the Roman army? I think not. What did that mean? It is the definition of the enemy for Mark's audience. And what do? They ask for permission from their commander if they could not be sent out of the country. So Jesus gave them permission to enter the pigs. What a great gesture and a right place for the Roman army, right? Put them in the pigs. So Jesus gives them permission. They want to go into the pigs? Fine, go in the pigs. Right? So we do have military stuff going on. The atmosphere of and the context of the military conflicts of the ancient world and the total domination of this is particularly the case for Mark's audience in the aftermath of the Jewish war. This story is being told in its present form, probably 71. Jerusalem was destroyed in 70. The temple was destroyed. We make a big deal about 9/11. Piddly. 3,000 people were killed. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed in Israel in the Jewish war. And the whole generation of young people, all those under the age of 25, virtually, were taken as slaves to Rome and became sex slaves, slaves in the mines on the ships of the Roman merchant fleet. That's what happened to an entire generation. So that's in the background, okay, is that experience. So there's a lot going on in this story in terms of listening to it. Questions?
What strikes me also is this is about feeding the hungry in a time of real economic oppression.
Right.
When those people would have been hungry.
Right. Right. Now another step in exploring, yes, good. That's an experience that was probably present for those who were hearing Mark's story. A lot of them were hungry. I don't know of any traditions of handing out stuff, but it was the case that often storytelling occasions were also occasions to eat. So I hope you'll do that this week. Take along some nibblies or something. That's appropriate. Now, connections. We're running out of time, I'm sorry. Connections with this story. What are experiences now, stories that are connected in some structural way with this story? Well, Janice just named one, experiences of hunger. When have you been hungry? What are times of primary hunger that you have experienced when unexpectedly you had enough to eat?
A lot of us work in feeding programs through our churches, I think, so-called soup kitchen. So we see a lot of people who are hungry.
Right. But the point of connection with this one would be, when have you been hungry?
When as an early married, being with no food in the cupboard, being invited to my grandmother's for dinner. That was just wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. We sometimes, people sometimes fast in preparation for a banquet or whatever. I don't know when. I think that's just something to, these are points of experiential connection. That's what we're looking for.
I want to say that it was the very beginning of the story that connected me. They were so busy they couldn't even eat. And does that describe life when you're working and your husband's working and you got to get to baseball practice and you're on church committees and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so way back then, they were still so busy.
Right, right. And everybody could identify with that experience, with that context of the story in which it's set. So that's what the story does.
Toss,
Yes.
that is there also a meaning of spiritual hunger that the people had as opposed to the physical hunger?
Yes, that's what this hope for a Messiah is about. It is the depression that sets in with being, every hope being dashed, every possibility of liberation being eliminated, the despair that comes from one war after another, after another, after another.
It struck me that as the disciples had just come back to tell Jesus of all the things they had done, all the teachings they had shared, that the next experience they had, Jesus did the actual spiritual teaching, and he commanded his disciples to do the physical food.
Yep, yep. The what we're looking for now, and this is just identifying a way of relating to the stories, we're looking for points of connection between our experience and the experience of the story. So what are the deep experiences that these stories address in us, and what are the specific points of connection between our experience and these stories? That's the question. So another would be experiences of surprising bounty. When have you experienced, out of the blue, so much more than you ever dreamed possible? That's what this story does. It's so much more than anyone could have even hoped, that it's hope beyond hope in relation to what happens. So when have you experienced that? When have you experienced needs being far greater than the resources at hand? Hungry kids, a group that you're responsible for out somewhere, and you've got no food for them, and being faced with that dilemma. What do you do? And one that just occurred to me that is in the background. And so I'm always saying, I'll tell you a story. One of the things that I find that I am steadily discouraged about is that throughout most of my adult life, I have been subject to my generation and my children being forced to fight in wars that were idiotic, that were generated by leaders for whom I had little respect at the time of the war, and that respect has gone down to utter and total disdain. I experienced that with Vietnam. The Vietnam War was a disaster for my generation. No one from my generation has ever been a leader of this country because my entire generation was so overwhelmed by that experience that we've never recovered from it. But now we have this thing, this disaster. And this one is not going to be over like the Vietnam War. We're going to be dealing with this all the rest of our lives. And we have been led into this by what I experienced. This is just my experience as an idiot.
I agree with you.
This was really, really dumb to invade Iraq. And I'm just talking about how I feel about this. So others may not. This is the way I feel. This is my experience. That's the experience. That's a connection with the experience of the people who heard this story. The Jewish war was a disaster. And it was led by zealots who were totally deceived about what would lead to redemption for the people who heard this story. That's a point of deep connection with the disillusionment that is present in relation to the disillusionment that war creates for people who experience it and say, God, they said the war would solve things. We have all this romance about war, and that was true in the ancient world, as true as it is now. So that's probably my deepest point of connection with this story. I'm speaking personally now. So, that's something you explore. What are the points of connection with this, with these stories? And what you do in terms of finding those is imagining what the experiences were that were being addressed by these stories, and then, the deep structure of experience. This was only 2,000 years ago. Their experiences are remarkably similar to ours. And so that same, you don't have to dig very deep in order to identify those places of common experience between theirs and ours. So that's part of, that's a dimension of exploring these stories as stories that connect with and transform our experience, our hopes, our possibilities.
And we look for these connections because they will inform the stories?
Yes.
Or they will help us to tell it in a more effective way?
Yes,
Okay.
all of those.
Well, also because it's the living word, right? If they're just some ancient text, who cares? But if we carry it,
That's like a personal
Yeah.
connection. I mean, like
Right.
when you're telling it to others to share the story with them for their benefit as
Right.
well.
If I had time now, what I would do, Peg, is I would ask you to tell those stories to each other about your own experience now. And, what is it for you? So that you can get in touch with that. What that does is, on the one hand, it deepens that for you as one who's going to tell this story. It also helps you to identify what is it that you are addressing in the experiences of the audience implicitly when you're telling the story. What are you trying to get to? And if you're preaching this, it also will reveal then what are the things that you want to identify for your listeners so that they can connect with this story more deeply in relation to their own spiritual and physical experience.
But even if you can't exactly equate what they're going through, an appreciation of some of the background you yourself made a mention of today, Jesus just finding out that really his relative, John the Baptist, has been beheaded.
Yes.
And yet,
And his teacher.
When he crosses the lake, what does he do? He has compassion
Right.
on them.
Right. Right.
Hello?
Yes.
Where's there time for him to have his own
Right.
grieving?
Right. Exactly.
But he was so preoccupied with serving
Right.
the needs of those around him.
Right.
There was no time for his own.
Okay. Prayer. It isn't hard to identify what do you pray about in the context of, how does this story then provide connections with prayer? How do you deepen this story as a source of hope when you are discouraged, depressed, whatever? Well, this is a story to pray with, to live into that experience in its details. As a leader who doesn't have enough resources. There just isn't enough money in the budget. So, those are the nitty-gritties of church life. How do you pray about it? Well, one way to pray is to pray with these stories. And in terms of the interiorization of the story, that also is a way in which then, if you are telling a story that you have prayed with, it will be a very different story than if it's one that is, you've just, it's still up here. But finally, how would you tell it?
I don't know what you mean by prayed with.
One of the central spiritual disciplines that has been taught in the Christian tradition of prayer is to imagine yourself in this story.
Oh, okay. Then I do know what you mean.
So specifically, the traditions of Ignatian spirituality became very specific about that in terms of what Ignatius called the composition of place as a way of praying. And it is to imagine yourself and all of the details of this story and of your being there, and then of identifying what is it that calls to you? How is it that God is present for you in that experience? And paying attention to that, just being there with it and letting God be, letting God be whatever God wants to be in that place. But to really listen and to also in that place tell the truth about who you are and what is really happening with you to God. The fifth dimension of this, telling the story. Where could you tell this story? What are the possibilities for its telling? Well, I would suggest that what the story invites us to do is to think of this as food that you can give to people. The story is that. It is the means for the meeting of people's needs. Well, where is this a story that could be told? And where could you tell it in ways that would have some impact on that? Well, there's Sunday morning. What are other contexts? Family? Children?
In a prison.
Prison? Feeding programs?
Any ministry, really.
Right. But then, how would you do it? In fact, is the context of this that you're telling it to people so that they could learn it, so they can tell it? Well, that is potentially a valuable thing to do in some contexts. That is, one context may be that you can have teaching occasions where you are doing this, where you are enabling others to learn. That's a context in which to tell the stories. That's one of the principal ways that I've gotten to tell the stories. Has been to organize storytelling workshops where like this one. But it's to think about, what this story invites you to do is to think about where are the occasions, what are the possibilities for your storytelling ministry, where you can tell the stories that will feed people's spiritual needs.